Hi, I'm Dixie, and this is the last of my 3 old failed Regency costumes that, for whatever reason, didn't end up looking or fitting the way I wanted them to, so I decided to make them over into something new and better. My first Regency dress turned into some 18th century accessories. My second dress became a 1920s day dress, but this dress is a little different. The main issue with it is the back. It doesn't fit. And this is a cautionary tale about UFOs, or unfinished objects. Years ago, I took my tried and true front closing Regency gown pattern and tried to convert it into a back closing dress. And to do that, though, I needed to make the center back bodice pieces much wider than the original pattern. Except I stopped working on this project sometime during the cutting process. So when I picked it back up again weeks later, I forgot to cut out the back differently and then proceeded to sew up the entire gown, only to realize my mistake right at the very end. And rather than suck it up and go back and fix it, I did the only logical thing and sewed an entirely new garment to wear over it and hide my error. This dress is made from sheer white striped cotton, and I thought about turning it into like a frilly Edwardian shirtwaist, but many of you suggested I should just fix the dress, so that's what I'm going to do. And since I still have a large chunk of fabric left, I'm also going to give this dress a glow up. One of the cool things about fashion in the Regency period is how versatile the clothing is, and you'll often see dresses that have detachable lower sleeves that were whip-stitched into the band of the shorter sleeve. This way you could easily take a gown from day to evening. So I'm going back to the original pattern I altered to make this dress and adding the lower sleeves, and of course I have to install a new back bodice. But wait, there's more. I'm doing another project to go along with this gown, but more on that later. For now, let's dive into the dress. Before we get started with taking this thing apart, I am noticing some details. This hem is really dirty from the one and only time that I wore it. And also, I never finished this back slit. This is just a raw edge, and it's starting to fray down here. I really need to take care of that. So I actually think I'm going to finish this edge by hand because this is going to stay intact, and run the whole thing through the wash so that I can hopefully clean this up. Then we can take it apart. I took the dress downstairs to sew that back opening, and I've been doing a lot of smaller hand sewing projects off screen lately. I even have a little kit handy on my nightstand so I can chill in bed and sew while catching up on my YouTube subscriptions. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, Brooklinen. After having a kid, I realized how precious my sleep really is, and I decided, you know what, I am a full-grown adult and I deserve nice bedding. And as I have been slowly making over my bedroom, the first thing I bought when I ordered my new bed was a set of the Brooklinen Classic Percale sheets. So when Brooklinen reached out to me, I knew that I wanted to try their linen hardcore bundle. This set is 100% linen, made in Portugal, and we know from history that people preferred to wear linen clothing against their skin because it is breathable, even more so than cotton, and it wicks away moisture, making it the coolest fiber to sleep on. Which is great because here in Texas, it gets really hot. I've slept on these linen sheets for a few nights now, and they are very comfortable and incredibly soft. And luxury sheets can be super expensive, but with Brooklinen you can get fantastic quality at a more affordable price because you can order from them direct without the middleman markup. You can mix and match colors and prints, but I went with a matching set for a kind of minimalist monochrome look. Brooklinen is offering my viewers a special discount of $20 off any order over $100. So just click the link in the description and use the code DixieDIY at checkout. Once that raw edge was hemmed, I could safely wash this dress. And the fabric is cotton, so yes, it's completely washable, but I did stick it in a lingerie bag for some extra protection. While that gets clean, I can work on the lower sleeves. And these sleeves have a little gathered bit at the inner elbow, which is kind of an evolution of the curved sleeves of the late 18th century. At first, I thought I'd flat fell the seam allowance, but then realized that the gathered section would make that look a little sloppy, so I trimmed the excess and instead zigzagged the raw edge by machine, which of course is not historically accurate, but it's the least bulky and the least noticeable option besides hand whipping the edge, which would produce basically the same result, but take 4 times as long to do. I also hemmed the top edge by machine because that's going to get hidden by the short sleeve band once it's attached, so why not? And because I have so much extra fabric, I thought, why not do the frilly sleeves? This version of the pattern features a double row of ruffles at the wrist. I did flat fell the seam allowances on these though, and the raw edges got the rolled hem treatment. Unfortunately, the ruffles are 2 different lengths, which meant I had to gather each of them individually, which took a little bit extra time. They get sewn to the bottom of the sleeve, and yeah, I attached one of the ruffles on backwards. Once I fixed that, I finished the seam allowances on the wrist and the sleeves are done. Washing did get the stains out of the skirt, but while examining the dress, I started to think that this skirt looked oddly too narrow. So I measured the hem and it was only about 86 inches, which is not big enough for a proper Regency gown. And then I found amongst the fabric scraps this one piece that was perfectly the same length as the skirt, and going by the trapezoidal shape, I realized it should have been the center front panel of the skirt. I don't know why I did not include it originally, but now I know I need to split the skirt open and plug this extra piece in, which will add a full 21 inches to the hem. I already had to take the bodice and skirt apart, so what's one more step that I wasn't anticipating? It's fine. It's totally fine. I ripped the original skirt down the middle and inserted the new panel using French seams. This is again not a historically accurate method, but it does create a very nice, clean finish on sheer fabrics or fabrics that fray easily. And it means I don't have to hand finish a long seam. To make French seams, you sew the seam first with the wrong sides together at a very narrow seam allowance. Then press the fabric back, right sides together, and sew another seam which encases the raw edge within the seam finish itself. I then had to rehem that section so it all matched up at the bottom. I procrastinated on the hard part, redoing the back bodice, and instead shifted gears to a new but related project. This is currently my only historical UFO, a pink silk Regency under petticoat using a pattern from the same company as my dress. I'd already finished the bodice but needed to assemble the skirt. I most likely stopped working on this because I absolutely hate slippery satin silk. This is a heavyweight charmeuse. It's very shifty, which makes it hard to cut, pin, and sew. And since I can't wash this fabric like I would cotton, that also means I can't use my usual technique of drowning the fabric in spray starch to get it to conform to my will. Luckily, my skirt pieces were already cut out, so I quickly sewed up the side seams. Well, I think I just did it again. I just made a skirt that is too narrow. I think there are supposed to be 2 skirt back pieces, and I only had 1. I must not have had enough fabric to do this whole skirt when I was originally making it, because this piece here is about half as wide as my widest back piece that spans selvage to selvage. And I have another piece of fabric, but it's not long enough, so that must have been extra. I think what I'm gonna have to do is split the back skirt open and insert this other panel This is why you don't have UFOs, because you never remember what you did wrong, and then you do it wrong again. I used that leftover fabric piece to fill in the back, and I finished these skirt seams with a zigzag stitch. Some of these seams are on the selvage, but others are cut and they will fray if I don't finish them. All of the side seams of the skirt are now sewn, so I can actually get to work on the thing that I came in here to do in the first place, which was the center back skirt opening. Except, it is now time for me to go pick up my kid from school. Ooh, fabric is here. Did you have fun today? Did you eat all of your lunch? No? What did you not eat? Back at home, I split the skirt down the center back, and just like on the dress, I hand finished a very narrow hem on the opening. It's Sunday and I have a little bit of free time, so my goal for today is to get this petticoat done. I'm going to find some hook and eyes, get those installed, attach the skirt, and hem it. Let's see if we can get it all finished. The pattern calls for a button closure in back, but I used hooks and eyes instead. And since my silk was so loosey-goosey, I cut strips of cotton organdy selvage to act as an interfacing to give some structure to those edges. I machine sewed the organdy selvage onto here, which I'm not too concerned about this because this won't show in the end. Now I'm going to hand sew it down. Oh, hello. Oh, don't knock that over! Oh no! Okay, the next thing I have to do is gather the skirt around the waist, but one thing I realized I didn't account for is the back section of the skirt slopes upward at the center back about an inch. It's not a huge deal, but it's an inch. And that's just because to cover the longer part of your back, I guess. But I did not account for that when I was sewing these pieces. So I think I need to angle this whole skirt ever so slightly and then gather it. The bodice gets matched up to the skirt, and all that goes through the machine. Well, she's looking good. I think we are ready for hemming. Oh my God, this is a mess. She needs a really good steam press though. Get all these wrinkles out. I made sure to give the petticoat a wide hem so it would be a tad shorter than the outer dress. With that complete, it's time to tackle the part I'd been avoiding, replacing the back. And I had an idea. Here's the back bodice of the original dress. This is my back piece. And at first I thought I would just take this whole piece out, but I also would have to sew this seam, and reattach it on the sleeve, and I kind of don't want to do that. I think what I'm going to do instead is just slice this off and add an extra panel of width, and then just gather it up. And hopefully it won't be that noticeable when it's gathered. You've heard it before, piecing is period, yada yada yada. So that is what I did. I cut new pieces for the lining too, since I still had scraps left over from making this dress. And I'm realizing this fabric is quite delicate and snags easily, as you can see from this little hole in the original back piece. Those new extensions get layered into the old bodice and sewn together. got the new back panels attached, and I also finished off this upper seam line. And the next thing I have to do is sew a drawstring channel and insert the drawstring, because it used to be a hook and eye closure. But a drawstring will give me a little bit more wiggle room in terms of fit. Once again, I reached for my handy dandy 1/8 inch twill tape for the drawstrings. Then I sewed a small channel with a prick stitch along the neckline. Today is my kids' last day of school for the year, which means I have about 3 hours of free time left for the rest of the summer. So I'm gonna try to get this dress done today. Let's see if we can do it. All that's left was reattaching the skirt, which needed to be gathered first, then pinned to the bodice. And along the sides, I added a couple of pleats. That will help with the skirt shape, allowing it to flare a bit better over the hips, as my underbust measurement is much smaller than my hip measurement. Finally, I added a second drawstring to the back waistline. I was in a rush to finish this dress because I wanted to wear it to an event a few days after this video will debut, but I'm not so sure that I'll wear it. Don't get me wrong, all the adjustments and improvements on this dress worked out fantastically. The extra skirt panel makes the skirt shape look like a proper Regency dress. The back drawstring alteration went off without a hitch, and I really like the sleeve extensions, especially the little ruffles. But now that I've worn the dress again, I realize it has a fatal flaw. One I probably didn't notice when I first made this dress because I was so distracted by the ill-fitting back. The front bust line sits quite high. Regency styles were all about that lifted bust, but even in my stays, my bust does not go that high. The dress keeps riding up and then rolling back, and I have to keep tugging it down. This could have been caused by any number of issues. Maybe it was a drafting error, or I am about one size bigger than when I made this dress, but I'd hoped that adding more room in the back would compensate for that. Maybe it will fit better if I wear it with my other stays. I could always pin the waistline in place while wearing the dress, or I still have about a ½ yard of fabric left, so if I really wanted to, I could redo the front bodice, but I don't have the time to do that before my upcoming event. The pink petticoat, however, is great, and I can tell that's going to get a lot of use in my Regency wardrobe. It's soft and smooth and fits nicely. I still need to steam out some of the deeper creases, but you don't see those under the overdress anyway. In any case, I'm glad I took the time to revisit this dress and to finish up a UFO. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Brooklinen for sponsoring this video. Remember, you can get $20 off any order over $100 at Brooklinen. Use the link in the description and enter the code DixieDIY. And until next time, happy sewing.